Alright guys, I'm just going to do a little update on where I'm at on the CNC machine. Um, well, I did the upgrade to a different power supply and the dm542 stepper drivers, and then I pulled the wire out of my, here, let me show you. This was what I was using. This kind of I just threw together Arduino GRBL, Gerbil, or whatever you call it. And I pulled the wire out. I was having too many problems, so I decided that I needed to just make a new control board for the CNC. And then I got to looking, and they've got Gerbil for stm32 microcontrollers. Oh, yeah, there's one right there. I just got junk like this laying around. But yeah, I had a bunch of these, so these are better microcontrollers, and I want to do at least a fourth axis, maybe even a fifth axis for my CNC eventually. So I figured if I was going to have to make another control board, I'd just use one of these. So that's what I did. Here's the new control board. Pretty simple. I just so I can pull it off and remove it, and I got these screw terminals. And I put one of these on so I can use I can have a removable USB. It's just a USB cord instead of using this little bitty connection that'll eventually break and make a bad connection. So I ran the USB lines to this also. So let me show you how I had to do it. I made this circuit board, just chemically etched it. I don't know if this is going to focus, but those are just cheap little MOSFETs, cheap MOSFETs, N007 or something like that. And then, I got resistors, and then for all the limit switches, I have a capacitor to ground, and I have pull-up resistors. Basically, a pull-up resistor and a filter for all the for each of the limit switches. So I got to test it just for a second or two. I had a bunch of problems with the firmware for this, because for 3-axis they use one pin out in the firmware off the internet, and if for 4th and 5th axis they use a totally different pin out. And then on top of that, this I use this CNC. I've been using it for a long time, ever since I got my little desktop one, and I don't think it'll run 5th axis at all. So I'm gonna have to learn how to use that other G-code sender. What is it? Universal G-code sender is what it's called. So and then it gets to the problem of switching back and forth. Well, okay, if I'm only going to run 3-axis, then I've got to have the firmware running for 3-axis. And then if I want to change later, I'm going to have to go to a different firmware, the 5-axis firmware, or 4th or 5th axis firmware, which uses different pinout. So what I did was I went through the firmware and into the code and made some changes to where I can do either with this same pinout. So this one control board and me modifying the firmware CPU mapping file allows me to use this control board for whatever I need to do without changing pinouts or nothing. I'll just, change it in the code. But I got it up and going. I got all the firmware finally figured out. Took me a while. Yeah, I haven't made a video in a while because I've been working on my car. All the free chance I had to work on my car for a couple weekends, and I finally got the car done. So I'm back onto this. So yeah, now I'll be able to do 4th and 5th axis later on using this control board, and I might have some circuit boards made and sell this circuit board on eBay, because I didn't see anybody else selling the stm32 control boards for a reasonable price. And I'd just make it like this, only have professional circuit boards made. But either way, I got it up and going, and I tested it. So I had the CNC. This thing isn't focusing, is it? I had the CNC going. I got all the axes moving, and all that. And then I started testing the limit switches with the homing and stuff. And as soon as the homing stuff would hit, it would the microcontroller would get knocked offline. And what I figured out was the reason that was happening was because this is just an old computer power supply, and it runs my coolant pump, and it runs the fans, the computer fans, and it also supplied the 5 volts to this, and I think it also supplied 5 volts to this, which is the control board for the remote cameras. So this old power supply crapped out on me, so it kind of jammed me up there for a second. And this old power supply came out of a computer I got here, and it kept having problems, so I bought a new one for the computer. And then this thing still worked, it couldn't take a really heavy load, so I just started using it for the CNC machine. But apparently it crapped completely out, which is fine because I've got other power supplies. I've got this power supply. This is a 12 volt. Wait, is that on this side? So this is going to run the 12 volts I need, and then I also need a 5 volt, and I need extra power to go to the circuit board and this circuit board and 5 volts. So I'm not sure. I'm probably just going to use a buck converter connected to this. So this is going to run the fans and the water pump. And if I stick a buck converter on here and knock that down to 5 volts, and that way I can for sure power all these circuit boards, and I won't have an issue. And I was also wondering, well, before I figured out that this power supply had crapped out, I was wondering if this cord was picking up noise, and I might try to find one of those ferrite beads and wrap the cord in case it's picking up noise or anything. But yeah, that's the update. That's what I've been working on, is getting all the electronics updated to the better stuff, and the control board's ready for 4th or 5th axis or whatever I go to. And because my next project is taking this piece right here. Let me grab this. And that's going to be an adapter plate that goes onto this. And I've got a design to put that to adapt to here, and that's going to be an adapter plate. This is a wheel bearing. And then this is going to be ran by a slow motor. I've got a gear reduction motor that's, I think it's a really big motor, and it's like, I think it's 60 RPMs or something like that. And so that's going to be part of another CNC machine. And that machine is going to have some other stuff going on. So I've got these, I got a bunch of these NEMA 17 cheapies. And I'm going to make a, it's going to be a CNC blade sharpener, but it's hard to explain. You just have to see it when I make it. But it's going to be a specialty CNC machine. Yeah, specialty CNC blade sharpening machine. But yeah, so all I gotta do is I've got to hook this new power supply up, put it where the old power supply used to go, right here, but it burned out. So I'll figure out how to put the new power supplies in, continue testing this board. I just want to make sure all my firmware's right and everything's moving right. I had to redo all the configurations. I want to make sure everything's working out right with that. But yeah, I might make these boards available, because the ones on the internet were way overpriced. They were over $100. They were like almost $180 for an stm32 control board. So I got the basic laid out, and I use the MOSFETs for the level converter, converting the level up to 5 volts, because these dm542s are supposed to have 5 volts for the data, the controls. So I just use MOSFETs to level up the conversion, and that's why I need the 5 volts from a power supply, because I don't think the 5 volts from the USB cord off of this battery powered laptop is really enough to run all that stuff, and or sync that much current that's required. So I want to have an external power supply to make sure everything's covered. So yeah, this controls the cameras. That all works fine. That's been working. So yeah, that's just an update. Next video I'll show something interesting, but I gotta get these power supplies back going. Alright, later.